I'm Todd Ulise. This is Michelle Froah. We're going to have a conversation around culture, inspiration. We're going to use 30 minutes, so maybe we're not going to do questions.
Or less.
Yeah, or less. So
you got to get down to the bar.
Down to the bar. So, everybody having a good time? Give it up for brand innovators as well. Thank you guys for everything. So, I'm Todd Ulise. I run marketing at a company called Ad.net. We built a paid search ecosystem outside of Google. I came from the brand and agency side. I actually used to own an agency in the comedy entertainment sector. I'd throw shows here at Esther Follies from about 2005. We broke every single comedian. It was a hoot, but glad to not be doing that anymore. And one of my big problems was I loved Google, but it was a little bit monopolistic. Government's words now, not mine. And who did it hurt? It hurt me as a brand, hurt me as an agency. So we embarked upon this initiative to build distribution outside of Google 12 plus years ago, and wild ride. The ride's only beginning. So going to kind of toss the ball to Michelle to do her introduction and kind of what got her to MetLife and whatnot.
Did you do any stand-up comedy while you were there?
I'm not funny. But if anybody wants to see me later, I can give you stories about some of the funniest stories about comedians that you'll ever hear about that are just completely off the wall. And comedy is all about timing.
That sounds good. I like that. Hi, I'm Michelle Froah, and I am SVP at MetLife, head of global brand and marketing. I've been there for about 4.5 years. Did you want me to give the whole intro? What are you doing?
Give the intro of how you got there, and we can take it from there.
All right. Well, strap in, because it's a long, winding road, which is what I love to say, actually, because it has been a long, winding road getting to MetLife, but I think that's part of the fun, honestly, is, enjoying those twists and turns that kind of come your way and taking them on as opportunities. So sometimes you got to take your hands off the wheel, put your hands up, right, and feel the air. So I started my career as an engineer in a manufacturing plant at Procter & Gamble, which was amazing because I think I learned a ton of leadership skills, for one, but also how to be a creative problem solver and how to be useful, especially when you're managing a lot of people who might have more technical skill than you might. I had the opportunity to be on innovation teams, which meant that I got to be on cross-functional teams bringing innovation into the plant. And that got me really interested in, consumers actually have needs out there, and how do companies and teams bring those needs to bear? So I did my MBA at night, and I went into marketing at P&G, which is actually not an easy thing to do, but it was awesome. And so while I was at P&G, I got the opportunity to do a lot of different facets of marketing. So innovation, design marketing upstream, P&L management, global, regional, local kind of marketing, and then also shopper marketing, which was kind of the new thing back in the day. And I think because of that, I did switch companies. I went to Kimberly-Clark and applied those skills to a new set of products, but also new roles and capabilities. So I lived in Asia, in Singapore, and I was the regional CMO across APAC. And that was super helpful and instructive because Kimberly-Clark was a little different than P&G, where you really wanted to be respectful of the consumer habits and practices in the local markets, and the competitive sets were different. So it was pretty cool. I had 13 countries, and we got to do commercial programs bespoke, in each of the markets, and that was great learning for me personally, but I think also really beneficial for the business. And then my husband and I, we have a dual career, so You know, sometimes one person's in the lead, the other person's in the lead. We had to head back to the U.S. and I started at Samsung, which, you know, is great because it's like CPG and technology infused. Super exciting space. Lived through Note 7 crisis.
When the word was explosion?
Yeah. Yes, on airplanes, everywhere else. Yeah, it was great. But obviously another opportunity to help lead the brand rebuild. I already had an MBA, as I said, but I got an MBA in crisis management through that, so that was interesting. You know, wasn't really looking to move, but this opportunity at MetLife came in front of me, and the reason why I was drawn to it was because, like many of the other companies I had worked for, customer centricity was the core of their ambition, and also a challenge, you know, to help the organization be more customer centric. And it's a very low engagement category, right? So that meant marketing could really add some value to how we approach that problem. So that's how I've ended up at MetLife.
So coming from P&G and then Kimberly-Clark, obviously to Samsung and then over to MetLife, you know, obviously it's drastically different industries. What have you found that maybe can kind of impart into the community some translatable skills, you know, because there's new business models, there's new mousetraps. Everybody wants to reach customers and engage customers in the most effective manner possible in the long run. What are some of the translatable skills that, you know, you've learned, you know, you can apply?
Well, I really appreciate that question. You know why? How many of you have ever interviewed for a new job or even a new position somewhere, right? And one of the criteria is you need 15 years in financial services before you can even consider this role. Wow, right? I mean, that's so. First of all, I think it's short-sighted of folks because there are so many transferable skills, right? So I think some that I have seen across the different companies has been, let's see, first of all, the challenge of having a 360 view of the customer, right? A lot of our businesses are not purely D2C. Insurance, for example, is highly intermediated. Even P&G, KC, and Samsung, you know, you have a retailer in between you and your customer. You have legacy systems that the data doesn't go back and forth, so you don't really know if your customer has bought this product or service and this one. So I think that's a big one. And the other one that I've seen is the concept of solutions and really bringing full service solutions to customers beyond just a product, right? So, for example, marketing an ecosystem of products and services, whether that is, you know, in consumer goods or in technology or in financial services, that one has definitely come up. The other one I would say is, as a leader, how do you create teams that are agile and resilient? Because you're going to face a lot of challenges, and you know you're going to have to fail fast, and you're going to have to move fast. But you know, organizations sometimes aren't built that way, especially marketing organizations aren't built that way. So that's a big one. And I'm trying to think of some other one. Oh, the only other one I can think of is as we accelerate digital and our digital transformations, there's still this need to be human, right? And to feel human. And you can't lose that as you're accelerating your digital efforts.
That's amazing advice for everybody. You talked a little bit about obviously your background with engineering and then kind of coming to marketing. As your careers progressed, and we'll talk about inspiration in a minute, you know, we'll talk about Women's History Month because it is Women's History Month. Have you found that marketing is moving more towards the engineering mindset, more kind of process oriented, kind of more technical as you get more data? What do you find is, you know, jump around a little bit. Talk the evolution of marketing. Do you find, the translatable skills and kind of how you view things and how you're seeing things going?
Yeah, I would say let's look to the future a little bit, right? I think there's a real need for marketers to be creative problem solvers, right? So that does bring in a little bit of the right brain and the left brain together. But to think about, two examples come to mind for me. One is new frameworks and approaches that bring business performance and outcomes combined with, or in direct impact with brand metrics. And I think a lot of times and a lot of industries treat those as separate things, right? That they don't go together. And I think you need to build brand and business at the same time. And so, coming up with frameworks like, for example, some of the things we're doing at MetLife, thinking about brand consideration and being predictive and having predictive models about what drives brand consideration. So you're a little bit lower in the funnel, but you're using data and analytics to help be more predictive about it, right? And then you're closer to sales. Relationships is the other one. So relationships is huge. One of our big global programs is about relationship net promoter score. It's not a marketing metric. It's a customer metric, which means that the whole organization has to rally behind that. And we use data and we use advanced analytics to really understand what are those insights that are behind the relationship, what drives it, and then opportunity areas are defined from that, and then cross-functional teams can actually go solve those very complex problems because not one function can solve that by themselves, right? It takes everyone to do that. It's been a hugely successful program for us. And then I think the third way is thinking about being more predictive about future behavior and customer lifetime value, right? So that will also help with business metrics like, just like NPS does, of staying longer, buying more, referring more. Those are all sources of growth for the business.
So I know we jumped to a couple of the last questions, but now's the fun part. Obviously you have a great history, great career. What inspires you?
What or who?
Both.
I think what is learning. I really have enjoyed moving either jobs within the same company or to new companies or industries, because it's a challenge to have a ramp-up curve. You're going to have a ramp-up curve, and how fast can you ramp up and actually learn? And I think be a curious learner, because learning is like a lifelong endeavor, I think.
There's a line in the play Rent that says, "How time flies when the passion dies."
Oh.
So stay passionate, love what you're doing, continuous learning.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that. I've seen that several times. The who part, what I'd say? I don't think I have like someone who's famous or a celebrity or anyone that I would super note. I think I'm most inspired by the people that are around me. And, there's circles of those people, and I'm always trying to expand that circle. So, I have obviously family that inspires me. I have friends that I'm very fortunate that, I've lived in many places, and so, I have friends around the world that inspire me. And then I think communities like this as well. I have a lot of industry friends and colleagues, and then of course, colleagues from all the different companies I've worked at, team members, bosses, mentors. And what I have found is that, that circle, the more you increase it, the more inspiration and points of inspiration that you can go to, to continue to fuel almost that continuous learning too, for sure. And so I try and put myself in uncomfortable situations, right? To expand that circle. I don't necessarily, like even in groups like this, I don't necessarily love to go work a room, right? And I don't like to be worked either, but I do enjoy really meeting people and having a two-way relationship where you invest in each other. And a recent example, I think we were talking about this too, Todd. I took some time out. I think you have to make an investment, with people too. It's not just acquaintances in that circle. It's really people that you want to have a relationship with. I took some time out, PTO, investment of time, investment of PTO, all those things. And I went back to Asia, see my friends in Singapore a little bit, so I had some fun. But then went to a retreat in Bali. And let me tell you, this is an uncomfortable position for me because I don't really meditate. I don't do yoga. Massage I could do all day. That's fine. But there was a lot of things that were going to be happening this week that were going to make me uncomfortable. We climbed a volcano in the dark with headlamps on just so we could see the sunrise. I'm allergic to bees. There were hornets the size of my head, so I carried 2 EpiPens with me at all times. A lot of things. But there were 22 women and 1 man, and it was amazing. I didn't know but a handful of them before that. And by the end of the week, we were like all BFFs, and you realize everyone's got shit that they're dealing with, right? No one's in a perfect situation. Everyone needs help. Everyone needs support. And everyone needs to push themselves a little bit outside their comfort zones, to get that. And, we have a WhatsApp chat group. I mean, it's been like people posting pictures, asking advice, sharing meditation thing. It's been amazing. And so I think you need, again, to keep increasing that circle, especially with people that, you may have not been friends with before that.
Well, and a lot of it is, to your point, building community, and over the last number of years with the pandemic, it's been hard. We've had to supplant the community thing with online, virtual, and, for concerns of people's health, and kind of getting back to expanding. You talked about growth. Inherently in growth is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you it's almost extrinsic motivations or intrinsic motivations. Most people want to live in their bubbles, be content with their day-to-day job, versus push themselves out of their comfort zone. You don't grow by being comfortable. And you have to have...
That's right, I agree with that.
You have to the point that you raised about everybody's got shtick, stuff going on in their life. It's, you almost have to kind of know and accept that, and, know that you have the confidence and obviously working through it and collaboratively. And to your point, a supportive community, that's going to only expand and kind of obviously help support you and, ask for help. The most powerful thing to do, is, hey, you know what? I'm working on this project. You might be a subject matter expert, or I'm struggling with this. What do you think?
Yeah.
And obviously when you open yourselves up to situations, people will be receptive to give and receive love. Told you we're going to get spiritual and deep here. So, kind of going to Women's History Month. It's March. It's Women's History Month. What does it mean to you as a women leader? And ultimately, what legacy, what type of thing do you want to leave for future women leaders, be it inspiring, helping them? Talk a little bit about how you support the community.
Yeah, Women's History Month and International Women's Day too. I mean, they're both really interesting because it forces us to have a time of reflection, right? And we're always moving so fast. Those times of reflection when you do the post-mortem, right? You learn the most from doing the post-mortem, right? So I think, Women's History Month, we're supposed to learn from the lived experiences that women have had in the past, right? In order to inform us to think about how we can change that for the future and what's the work to be done for the future. And so I think that comes up in a few ways. We had the women's panel earlier today, and we were talking about some of those ways where it comes to life and you can make a change. But I think there's, for sure, mentoring people that are around you in that circle, right? I mean, like, and it's a two-way mentorship, I think. I learn just as much from the people I mentor as I hope they, learn from me. But also thinking about new challenges and problems. For example, I read a great article that I think Female Quotient put out about GPT. And the fact that we need to encourage more women to actually use that, right? Because the more you're going to introduce unconscious bias if women and people with diverse backgrounds and thoughts don't add prompts in that help the AI machine learn, right? So I think that's an interesting thing to change for the future. I think the other thing is in giving back, like even informal mentorship. I have a lot of people that send friends, kids, or even my kids. My kids are like, one's in college and the other one is thinking about what she's going to do for a career. And marketing, people like don't really know what marketing's about, right? They think, oh, it's just advertising or it's just creative fun stuff. And they don't think about all the other aspects of marketers, from data science and
data,
right, and all and the other aspects. And so something I found interesting was, because my daughter's kind of struggling. We had a big conversation the other night at the dinner table of, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I'm on the Young Lions jury for Cannes. And Ryan Reynolds started this creative ladder. Did you know this? I didn't know about it before.
His agency, and they're vertically integrated, and he can turn content, actually, so I'm speaking, turn content very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's a great model.
He also has a quiz, 2-minute quiz that people can take. And it'll tell you like what careers you might have in our industry. And I was like, well, that's really cool. So I made her take the quiz at the dinner table. It was hysterical because she was like, what's this Lego question? Like, why would you buy a Lego set and not follow the instructions? And I was like, I know what what's the output is gonna be. You're going to be a project manager. But, I think things like that are super helpful to help people expand the thought of what can you do in this industry? What value can you add? And we need to do more of that to educate people on the right career choices and the right ways to add value.
What advice, in addition to education, and mentorship, what advice would you give to kind of anybody wanting to get into the marketing world? I know it's a little bit of a curveball. What advice would you give, anybody wanting to get into the marketing industry? Well,
first, I think you have to be comfortable with data. All right, we all may if we don't drive the brand and the business at the same time, and you're not comfortable with making cases for change and identifying innovation backed by data of how it's going to provide growth, I don't think your ideas are going to hold as much credibility with your cross-functional counterparts as they probably need to.
Yeah, it's a very strong argument, data-driven methodologies, and get the BI folks to kind of do stuff. So kind of talking about kind of future forward, maybe kind of 10 years, what are some of the thoughts kind of you had about, marketing, the industry? I mean, one of the last questions I think we talked about, maybe talk a little bit more about, let's put our future hats on.
Yeah, so I think I probably already answered that earlier, but with the new approaches to match customer metrics with business performance outcomes, I think is key. Another area, though, since we're talking about diversity and inclusion, et cetera, I think is looking at how we do more diverse and using DEI lenses in how we think about customer needs and doing research. So, for example, we're thinking, we've done a lot of work about historically what has happened with customers, right? During the pandemic, we were doing a lot of customer behavior work, like right in the moment, trying to guess what's going to happen. And now we're kind of taking a step back and we're thinking about, what about the future, right? And so we're thinking about, in 10 years, what's the future world going to look like? And how are customer needs going to change in that future world? And then, of course, how can we, your company, any company, but especially for us, MetLife, how could we live our purpose in that new world and maybe in new and different ways? Now, what happens is if you just look at that, this is why I say a new frontier, right? If you just look at Gen Pop kind of data on all of that, you're going to miss all the nuances of specific DEI needs, right? That's one miss. The other thing is there's an intersectionality, especially when you put a couple of those lenses together, where you might uncover even new areas that you could deliver benefits in those spaces. So I think it's really changing the DNA of how we do research, how we listen to customers, and frankly, how we predict those future needs and behaviors. That is somewhat of the next frontier that we need to do.
Well, and some of the things that you talked about too is, getting obviously more women involved, ChatGPT, and then as you just said, we're kind of re-looking at structures. Any model is only as strong, any AI is only as strong as the inputs that go into it, or
That's
any
right.
machine learning. And, it takes somebody that's confident that can say, oh wait, maybe we look at this a little bit different way. It might require more work, but I want to see what the results are, because ultimately, for better or worse, the experiences that we have are to an extent curated, right? And how do we unlearn that and make it agnostic and make it kind of like challenging some of the norms? Because you never know, you might find, to your point, find patterns that could be somewhat different and educational where, oh wow, I didn't see this coming.
Right. Yeah, what do you think the future holds?
I think I'm the eternal optimist in life.
Ooh.
So, I think I want to take the learnings from what's happened the last number of years, and I'm optimistic that the world is more inclusive, more open, and we just more listen to each other. We build, as much as you kind of said, I completely agree with, further relationships and challenge each other, and, thank the guy who's manning the door out there and not giving him a hard time. He has a job, he has a family. Just understanding people and caring and putting yourself in other people's shoes. I can give you my pink Nikes if you'd like. But putting yourself in other people's shoes and just caring and being more an open culture in society as we go forward.
Yeah, I love that. I think that makes us much more well-rounded, bigger perspectives.
So, is Adam giving us the... all right.
We got we're getting the gong?
We got the bong. All right.
All right.
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you guys.
Oh.